DangerDolan. The industry has changed. A good chunk of PC gaming has deviated from the console style of buy a game for lump sum, play for a while, disregard purchase and repeat. Now you have games like League of Legends, Dota, Team Fortress, Aeon, Rift, Guild Wars and Dungeons & Dragons Online, all riding the free-to-play bandwagon, even if some of them were originally built with subscription models in mind. One's designed because each game needs you to play indefinitely. The more players, the more income for those that develop and publish said game. So let's briefly look at why a game might go free to play, specifically for an MMORPG. When a massive game like SwordTor or Neverwinter is in development, the best source of income from your product is that of a subscription model. Every month you get a guaranteed lump sum based on how many subscribers you have. You can accurately predict how much you'll get, whether or not you'll be able to pay your employees and investors, and use most of the remaining income to develop new content for the game like raids or expansions. Now look at free to play. The amount of money you get per month is chaotic. One month, 1 million of your players will each spend $10 on microtransactions, which means you generate $10 million. But the next month, if only a quarter of your players spend $10, you only receive $2.5 million profit. So then you turn around to your employees and say, sorry guys, we can't afford to pay you this month because not enough people bought the plus 10 mints of eternally fresh breath off the cash shop. Sure, you might get more money than from a straight edge subscription, but there's absolutely no guarantee that influx of money will have any form of consistency or longevity. Now ideally, developers will make enough money from sub fees to recoup their losses and pay back investors, but this rarely happens. Anyone with half a brainstem can tell you that BioWare did not want SwordTor to go free to play, but in the end they had to. They sunk between $100 and $200 million into development, so when their player base only barely exceeded 1 million, EA's jimmies were rustled beyond breaking point, so they demanded an immediate transition to free to play. This transition took about a year to implement. Of course, by then the damage was well done because people realized Endgame was a bug-ridden, WoW-cloned carcass. That's what happens when you deal with publishers and investors. If you're a private company like Blizzard or Square Enix, you've got no one pressuring you to get rich quick to pay them back. Instead, you can cruise along with sub fees, a stable income, frequent patches, and large expansions. By the same token though, just because a game has gone free to play doesn't mean they won't be able to cope with those income fluctuations. The developers might just stockpile the initial wave of money and dish it out carefully until they can afford to produce an expansion or DLC, which brings even more money. Sure, it might annoy the player base to an extent, but when the alternative is bankruptcy, there really ain't much choice involved. I said it before and I'll say it again, Blizzard can get away with a sub model because the cost justifies the experience. But with their sub numbers falling, is it perhaps time to change their philosophy? So you may or may not already know that WoW has a limited free-to-play model that lets you grind up to level 20, though I'd class this more as a demo than a subscription alternative. Likewise, the game has microtransactions that range from mounts to pets to transmog items like the Hood of Hungering Darkness. Now recently they implemented the Experience Boost item and lesser charm purchases for the in-game cash shop, leading heaps of websites to speculate they're testing the water for a free-to-play model. And it'd be silly to deny this. As one of the only true surviving subscription-based models out there, every year it gets harder and harder to compete with games offering a similar level of quality at no face cost. Now make no mistake, Blizzard have the funds to survive several more years at anything above 2 or 3 million subs, so their 7.7 million current players don't exactly spell doom and gloom for the company. But there's more to it than that. It's not all about WoW itself. You might have recently heard about Activision Blizzard's split from Vivendi, actually putting their company in $1.4 billion worth of debt. Though since Vivendi's own spreadsheet failure would have landed them in more trouble if they hadn't split, it's safe to say Activision Blizzard's top franchises like Call of Duty and WoW will, no doubt, clear up this new debt given time. But that requires both games to continue doing well, and of late, WoW sub numbers have been slumping. If there's ever a time that Blizzard needs WoW to maintain steady profit, it's right now. In the short term, if Blizzard got themselves into some financial trouble because, say, they released some StarCraft 2, Diablo 3 expansions and they bombed, while a newly released Halo game takes away profits from Call of Duty, WoW dropped down to piss all subs, then they'd be forced to make WoW go free to play just to keep themselves afloat. But the chances of this are astronomical, and they're better off just building a new game like Titan with free-to-play in mind, which is what Activision Blizzard's CEO Bobby Kotick hinted might have delayed their new MMORPG from release. There's no point sinking all that manpower converting WoW into total free-to-play model when their cash shop offering vanity items and server name race change fees, they serve as the easy compromise. Now let's look at the subscriber losses, which has been ongoing since the release of Cataclysm. There's been a few events since then to help ease the hemorrhaging. The first being 2012's annual pass, which attracted 1.2 million new players and a steady subscription estimation for that quarter. Next, you have the Pandaria launch. 3 million purchases in the first week, with another million or so in the weeks following. Lastly, there was the game's return in China for October 2012, with over 6 million players over there. But now, since the expansion is out, and there'll no doubt be a 2-year gap before the next one, the future has started to look dark. And that's why you're seeing such a steep drop in the small span of time, one that will continue until this time next year. Patches and raids help keep the player base interested, but under no circumstances do they bring in subscribers. Though Blizzard have said they have no plans for another annual pass, I will be stunned if they don't offer a similar deal come this BlizzCon, since the excitement of 5.4 will have worn off by then, and we'll be looking at a 9-month or so gap with only one pre-expansion patch to look forward to. But like ancient Rome, while we're all squabbling over how much of the city is burned down, and whether or not it's a big enough deal to worry about, the fire continues to burn. WoW needs a plan of action, or a successor. Just before I move on to the viewer comments, I'd like to just briefly touch on the concept of extending the 1-20 demo into a 1-60 free-to-play model. It wouldn't even require much work, just let everyone experience the Cataclysm leveling content, while all the expansions still require retail purchase and sub fees. It's a fair compromise, hopefully one Blizzard might consider if need be. Here's our first comment from Miranda Benson. I don't think WoW will go free to play. I'd put my money on them going buy to play plus cash shop with the next expansion though. There's one option that I rarely see brought up in these discussions though, and that's the potential for a Plex analog. If you could sticky tape Guild Wars 2's gems to gold system and Plex together, the game could remain a sub-game while increasing the number of active players quite significantly. I'd wager it'd also make cash shop plus sub more palatable, which is a big stickler right now it seems. So what Miranda means by the Plex system is to buy in-game gold with real money, exactly like the gold farmers in WoW offer, but from Blizzard instead. At face value you can dismiss this as pay to win, but in something like Guild Wars 2 you can pay real money to buy gems, which then reward vanity items and cosmetics. However, you have the option to trade these gems with another player for gold. So unlike the pay money for lump sum of gold, these gems fluctuate prices based on the in-game economy. The more people that decide they want to buy gems and trade them for gold, the lower the value of gems becomes, thus raising the price of gold. It's a form of new currency based on microtransaction purchases. It's like purchasing blood spirits with real money and selling them for in-game gold to buy gear pieces. The more people who try to sell them, the less their worth becomes, and gold is suddenly worth a lot more. But if the conversion comes with a tax, it reduces gold in the economy with each transaction, like repair fees for raiders. If I buy a mount off the cash shop, that's it. I've spent my money and I receive a reward. But if I spend money and get a tradable commodity, the possibilities are now endless. Blizzard has already explored this concept to a small extent. If you remember back in 2011, the Guardian Cub was released as a purchasable $10 pet tradable for in-game gold. But since the pet single available use is so niche, it didn't really affect the economy. In fact, the resulting effects were so negligible that I believe Blizzard used this as an example. The tradable goods wouldn't serve as a viable alternative to subscriptions, or even as a form of microtransaction. If we can learn anything from the real money auction house in Diablo 3, it's that letting players buy the best gear with no penalty or tax leads to a completely broken pay-to-win economy. Gold farmers are just a side effect from offering no alternative. Here's our next comment from Chris Maloney. I would make it free to play, but have all raids, dungeons, scenarios come out a patch after they've been released to paying customers at $5 a month. The in-game store would gap the $10 price reduction, having items such as experience boosts, item finding potions, etc., but nothing that affects PvE or PvP. Well, since they already have the in-game store offering exactly what you wrote, I feel it'd have to offer other forms of content. Maybe instead of waiting a patch, the free-to-players could have the option to buy access into a raid or dungeon for 99 cents a piece. Though you have to bear in mind that it means the player base will be split in two. How do you recruit people into your raid team when you don't even know how many people running around Stormwind have access to the latest tier? I like the idea of delayed LFR releases, but forbidding a section of your player base from experiencing the new hyped up content in any form would be paramount to financial suicide. The in-game store needs to be handled with tact. If you offer gear, it will break progression. If you gate content with microtransactions, it will negatively affect recruitment and queue times. Vanity and convenience items are already offered, but would not be enough to support a free-to-play model. Unless you go full retard like SWOTOR, slowing a toon's movement speed unless they pay a sub fee, I really don't see how you could rely on the cash store to support your game's funding. The one exception I can think of is optional content like challenge modes or pet battle tournaments. Offer these for free for subs, but also purchasable through microtransaction for free-to-players. Separate the line between progression, optional, and vanity content, then build a free-to-play model around that. And now our third comment from Matt Lentner. Free-to-play, aka pay-to-win, is the ugly red-headed stepchild of the MMO community. Money-wise, it's a proven successful model. Blizz could rake in more cash than they already are. Gameplay-wise, it would destroy the community. Free means more children would start playing... not cool. I picked this comment because it makes me feel a lot of people associate free-to-play with pay-to-win, which simply isn't so. When any type of competitive progression is involved in a game, the player base needs to know they can compete with the best of the best given enough time and skill. Off the top of my head, I can't even name a pay-to-win game, at least none that I can take seriously, cough, Diablo 3 cough, or ones that are popular enough for any type of backlash to take place. Blizzard will never allow this to happen. No sane company would. In fact, watch this small clip taken from one of their Q&A panels.
Is that to suggest maybe baby steps to a future World of Warcraft that might be free to play, or is that reading too much into it?
I mean, in general, we're very happy with the direction that WoW is going right now. We like the way that our game plays out to players, with the way that with the pay to play monthly. People can play with game cards, they can pay monthly with credit cards. We're happy with that. We like the way that the store adds accessibility for people who want to get vanity items specifically, things like mounts and pets. Obviously, we just introduced the new hounds recently, but our goals there are to give people that want access to more vanity type stuff. They can do that if they want to get those, but in no way are those items offering player power or anything that would change the general gameplay experience of the game.
As for more children playing if it goes free to play, just because a game opens the floodgates doesn't mean there still isn't a barrier of entry. I started playing vanilla when I was like 14 years old, and I didn't even reach level cap before the Burning Crusade was released. That's because I was so impatient and such a brain dead noob that even if I were to finally make it to endgame, none of the raiding guilds would take me seriously regardless. I've always found that players geared at endgame to be worthy of their status. You might get the odd exception, but they just churn through LFR and quit anyway. If you're afraid of children playing, then you need to stop spending all your time on low-level alts expecting to bump into politicians and philosophers. What would truly make the game too accessible would be if we could all roll new instant level 90 toons with a raid guild finder akin to LFG. And just because a game goes free to play, that doesn't mean it's suddenly a hotspot for kids. $15 a month can eat away at a budget. I mean, sure, $15 really isn't that much in the grand scheme of things, but take this for example. I recently bought a laptop I'm taking with me to America come this November. It was 20% off because my local electronics store was having a sale, and it's as powerful as my PC, so I caved in and sunk all my savings into the purchase. Now, YouTube only pays me once a month, while at the same time I was making the transition from welfare into the self-employed payments. Combine that with multiple trips to the bar with some mates that week, and I'm essentially broke. See, that's when the $15 a month becomes a problem. On a free-to-play model, I don't have to worry about this, but between food, my phone bill, and the delay on my next work payment, it puts a strain on my wallet. And a lot of people have it worse off than me. So anyone who might be hesitant to pick up the game, on a free-to-play model, they no longer have any reason not to give it a try. I don't know about you, but I like the idea of more people on my server, no matter who they are. And now here is a final comment from Jimmy Neutron. Honestly, WoW might just quit altogether. Let's say you ran an ice cream truck and you charged money for fudge dicks and titty sprinkles. All of a sudden you stop charging money. Well, with how much WoW costs to keep running, it's impractical to keep it running at all. They'll basically force everyone to get Titan. Boatloads of money will be made because they'll stop pouring money into that dinosaur and make some dough off Titan. They could also sell the rights Starwang, that's what I think he meant to write. Well, I think it's a little optimistic to say WoW would make so much money that they'd like drown in it. I mean, we all love the fudge dicks and titty sprinkles, but after being served the same ice cream for 9 years, we want a new flavor. The same brand of truck, mind you, just new ice cream. It's interesting to think though that if Titan is indeed the successor to WoW, the only thing Blizzard can do before it's released is to milk WoW for all it's worth. Subscription models are good for a long-term financial plan, but there's no denying that games which go free to play make a ton of money extremely fast. I say, plan the final expansion to be huge and drop the sub fee. Charge for everything and wring your player base dry, then use those funds in the development of Titan's ongoing expansion packs. Of course, Activision Blizzard is also a brand with a reputation at stake, but so you're just going to make it subtle. Revolve your advertisement campaign around the new free-to-play concept and only charge for bits and pieces like optional content and transmog sets. Then, on the last day, right before Titan is released, delete every member of the Horde and have a night of Alliance parties in Orgrimmar. I'd like that. So that's it for this discussion. As for the next topic, we got: should Blizzard revamp Outland, the 60 to 70 leveling zone? So does it stand the test of time? Do you think the quests are too dull? Do we need an update to the storyline because it's so irrelevant at this stage? Or should we wait for the Legion's return and possibly Illidan's Storm Rages? Or just offer an alternative leveling experience? Let me know what you think. Comment below, might be featured on the next discussion. That's it. Have a good one.